out of Kentucky, our first Kentucky player. Harrison, can you tell us about Tyty? First of all, I have to say something. I almost said this both times. I know I've said it before. These graphics are gorgeous, Eric. I hate to compliment you, but every time I see them, they're so good.
You do hate to compliment me. That's the one thing that I'm taking from any of this. And Harrison, can I just add athletic green? I cannot endorse athletic greens anymore. I take athletic greens every day, and people have begun to compliment me, Eric, D-Line, on my physical appearance.
Are you becoming more athletic?
No, most certainly not. People have told me I look more rested and that my skin looks smooth.
They're like, you're so brave for dressing the way you do, and you're like, what? What do you
I'm just telling you, like,
you're so brave for posting that photo that you posted of yourself. That's very powerful.
I'm just telling you, like if me, D-Line, can receive a compliment on my physical appearance, it can happen for you too. Athletic greens.
So let's clip that and send it to him.
Tyty Washington.
Tyty Washington. Well, I'm glad you mentioned he's the first Kentucky player we've talked about. My general rule of thumb in the draft is if you don't know what to do, just take a Kentucky guard. Like that's a nice rule to live by in the draft. Tyty Washington. He's a point guard. It seems like he can play a little off the ball as well. Freshman out of Kentucky, 19 years old, 6'4" with a 6'8" wingspan. He is what I would just call an all-around point guard. I mean, this guy's a pure point guard. It seems like in every sense of the word. He's got good size and length for a lead guard with that wingspan. He can play make out of the pick and roll. Loves to get to that mid-range pull-up. He's got a great mid-range pull-up. Tyty Washington does. Really effective scorer from there. He's got a great pace and kind of patience and feel to the pick and roll, and just to his entire game. He plays at like this kind of unique pace, it feels like. He's kind of a game manager. He controls the entire offense. He moves the ball as well. Got great court vision, and he just kind of has this really nice point guard feel for the game to him. I feel like he's got a high basketball IQ, knows how to run his team. I was pretty impressed watching the film of this guy, just in terms of how he plays point guard, how savvy he is kind of in that role.
What do you think, Eric?
You know who I saw in him, and I don't know if this is a Kentucky thing. I don't think so, because I never watched him there. The longer I watched, I saw Jamal Murray. I saw Jamal Murray's shot. I saw Jamal. I don't know what, like, he, to me, like, I saw some of Jamal Murray's finishing. He's like a lesser version. He's shorter than, obviously. I mean, that's the immediate negatives on this guy. It's just that he's a little bit smaller. He is the same height as Bones. He has the same hair as Bones. He's great. He's got
this hairstyle is really picking up steam.
A great Bones hair comp. Like,
what you want to know what's funny is Kevin O'Connor has comped him to Emmanuel Quickly.
Yes, which is basically Bones. Bro. But I'm telling you, I saw Jamal Murray in this man's shot. I saw Jamal Murray as he was playing. He's just a smaller version of, which makes me think like, okay, there's a redundancy there. Like, I don't know if that's all these guys that we're looking at. I'm like, okay, I can see all of these two anyway. There is talent there. There's absolutely something that's going to translate to the next level. It's the redundancy. It's like, okay, we would have to create a space for either one of these guys to have any sort of role in the Nuggets, which means, if we are trading Monte, but then, you don't want, we're not in a place where we can hand over even our backup unit to a rookie. This guy feels like, though, he's going to make an impact in the NBA. I absolutely see the shot, the finishing, the control, the passing. The one thing I didn't see was anything about his defensive prowess. Like, I didn't see any highlights that sort of went over that. So I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about that.
I think he was like solid, but the thing about it is his physical tools. So this is the one thing we haven't kind of mentioned here, because I'm with you, Harrison. I watch him and I'm like, I really like this guy, man. Like, similar, honestly, to Blake Wesley, he plays a style of basketball that I really appreciate, really like. I think he's another guy that, just in terms of like playing with him, would Yoke like it? Like, absolutely good decision maker, capable of doing a lot of different things, good passer, good scorer, in the mid range in particular. So I think he's a guy that has that. It's just he's so small. I mean, 6'3", and we're talking about another small-bodied 6'3". It's another issue. The Nuggets have that with Monte Morris. I think he has the upside to be a Monte Morris type player, meaning a guy that can play real minutes for a really good team. It's just that you got to be really certain he's your guy if you're going to go back to a 6'3" player. You got one. Again, what's the roster look like around everybody? What's everybody else on the roster look like? You're probably not doing that if you hold on to Monte, if you hold on to Bones. I don't know that he has a role going forward, let alone now. But I do like him. Like, he is a player I do like. Yeah. I like the style. I like the skill set.
He honestly could be Monte Morris, in a couple of years. Like, he's got a lot of the same tendencies, I feel like. And Monte, coming out of college was a way more polished player, 4-year player at Iowa State. You kind of knew more about, I think, exactly the type of player he's going to be.
Yeah.
Tyty Washington probably has a higher ceiling, I definitely say, than Monte does. But just in the pick and roll and how much of a floor general Tyty Washington is, you could kind of see him playing, like that backup point guard role like Monte Morris did.
Right. And I think he might actually be a little bit bigger than Monte, even just like when you talk about length. I think he's a little longer, so it's a little bit less. But when you start to pair him with, say, a Bones Highland, then you are talking about, that's a vulnerable backcourt in a playoff series. And is Denver really – he's probably too good to be a fifth guard. Maybe not next year, but going forward, you're not going to draft a guy to be a fifth guard. And he's probably too small for Denver with the guys that we feel like are cornerstone backcourt players, which are Jamal Murray and Bones Highland. So I really like him. I mean, he's a guy we might end up circling back to like 4, 5, 6 years from now. He might be a second draft type player if Denver's in a different spot with different personnel. But that's the only thing I would say about him is I just don't think he fits this team.
This does feel like this could have been another Tim Connolly pick. Like when they picked Bones Highland last year, we were like, what that's not a need. What are we doing? And now I could not be happier. The greatest pick of all time. So Tyty is, I mean, he's a good player. Like, he's definitely a good player. Mitch, our merch manager, is so over the moon he's so into Tyty Washington. Simply
he's not though. Yeah.
Simply because he plays at Kentucky. So we were all like, all right, we're like, okay. And it sounds like we all sort of like incredulously came to the Tyty Washington film and we're like left like pleasantly surprised. Like, this guy looks like he can do some things. Yeah, he can do some things. Like, so I mean, I like the idea of just having good players in our system. It's just like, again, getting back to the idea of like, man, there are things we absolutely need. And I just don't know if we're going to get them from this draft regardless. If we're talking about making sure that the pipeline is strong and that we have, the cupboard remains stocked. This is a guy that you'd love to have in the system because it's just talent is hard to come by in the NBA, or just reliable, good players are difficult to find. And this seems like a guy that is going to make an impact.
Yeah. He just seems like a really solid player, somewhat of a high floor. It feels like for a freshman, even. I feel like he's going to be a good shooter, shot 35% from 3 last year, 75% from the line. And in the mid range, I mentioned this a little bit, but he looks like a young Chris Paul sometimes when he's rising up in the mid range. He comes off a screen, one dribble, just pulls up when he has that little bit of airspace and just knocks down mid-range jumpers at a really high rate. Like, I think he's going to be an elite mid-range guy.
I think both of these guys we talked about pair really nicely with Bones offensively. Like, I would love both of those guys to be playing with him on the offensive end. And the defensive end, again, that's the hardest part to scout, especially with the time frame that we have to kind of scout these guys, is the hardest part. I'm mostly just writing him off because of physical reasons, but both guys have really good wingspans and have sort of a knack for like, they're not dumb defensive players, neither one of them, right. Wesley or Tyty. So both of them are just really, really compelling offensive options. Defensive, bigger question marks, probably more likely than not that they're the shutdown type guys that we expect them to try to fill that with. But look, I wouldn't be unhappy with either one of them. Tyty a little bit more like, what are we doing? Like, what's the plan?
Let's go.
But I think he's a good player that I would look forward to watch playing.
Here's the thing, though. Are the Nuggets taking Blake Wesley or Tyty Washington if Monte Morris is still on the roster?
No
way,
right?
Maybe.
No way.
Like, neither one of those guys are going to start, or not even start. Neither one of those guys are going to lead the second unit. There still needs to be someone to lead the second unit, unless you're saying like Bones Highland is going to be, elevated to that position. I don't think it's in any way.
I could see Wesley.
They're going to get rid of.
I could see Wesley. It would depend on what your other players were. It would depend on kind of what the rest of the roster shaped out to be. But Wesley to me is an interesting player, man. Like he might be again. Bones Highland, Wesley, Davon Reed. That's really young. I think part of this is it's so inexperienced. I don't think you go into the title year with 3 guys that are basically all 1 year or less of experience. So that wouldn't work from that. But from a standpoint of, you're talking about, 20 and a half feet of wingspan between those 3 guys that are all mobile and sort of have good feel for those types of things, how to use it. That's cool to me. That's intriguing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I would say it's unlikely that they pick either of those 2 guys if Monte Morris is still on the roster, but he might not be. I mean, it seems like it's definitely a possibility that he could be traded here. So if that's the case, yeah, you could definitely use another ball handler to get in the pipeline.
Yeah, if either of those guys were available at 30 still, like I would probably, if you're looking at, okay, like, in the Tim Connolly years where you have like the one guy that's like, okay, this is sort of fills a need. And then you have like another guy that's just like a fun pick, like a pick that you just like the guy. I mean, these are both like great players that, I wouldn't hate that the Denver Nuggets to draft them.